My parents' house on Maple Ridge wasn't just a building. It was my entire childhood pressed between drywall and memory. The scuff mark on the floor from where I learned to ride my bike indoors. The notch on the doorframe charting my growth from kindergarten to high school graduation. The porch swing where I had my first heart-to-heart with my dad. It was the anchor. I was living 3 hours away, building a life, but that house was my true north. I came back at least once a month, a pilgrimage. The key under the blue flower pot still worked. My room was a shrine, untouched since I left for college varsity jacket in the closet. Trophies on the shelf, a time capsule of who I was. Last Sunday, I drove home unannounced. I'd just landed a major promotion, my biggest commission check yet. I was bursting to tell them. I pulled into the driveway, my speech already forming on my lips, and saw the sign. Not a for sale sign, a sold sign, red letters. Stark against the white plastic dot, the world didn't tilt. It just emptied. The sound of my car engine cut out into a ringing silence. I got out, my legs moving automatically. The sign was real. It had the realtor's face on it, smug and smiling. A little rider sticker at the bottom, closed. 3/15. 3 weeks ago. They'd sold it 3 weeks ago and hadn't told me. I stood there for 10 minutes, maybe 20. The new onus, a young couple. I later learned pulled into the driveway in a shiny SUV. They looked at me, curious, protective. "Can we help you?" the man asked, stepping out. I grew up here, I managed to say, my voice strange. "Oh," the woman said, her face softening. "It's a wonderful house. We're so excited. How much?" The question was out before I could stop it, rude and raw. They exchanged a glance. The man shifted uncomfortably. "We got it for asking. $900,000. $900,000. They got my treehouse, my secret hiding spot in the hedges, the ghost of my childhood dog in the backyard, for $900,000. I muttered an apology and drove to a coffee shop in a daze. With trembling fingers, I pulled up the property listing. There it was. High-definition photos of my home, scrubbed clean of us. My bedroom was a bright flex space. Basement where we watched every movie. Was a fantastic entertainment area. Though, listing boasted about the updated kitchen my mom had agonized over just 2 years ago. And at the bottom, the agent's remarks. Seller motivated. Quick close possible. Motivated. My parents were motivated to erase our home without a word to me. I called my brother, Evan. He lived across the country. "Did you know?" I asked. "No, hello." A long pause. "Know what?" "Maple Ridge. It's sold." His silence was different. It was heavy, guilty, thin. "They said they were going to tell you." My stomach dropped. "You knew." "They told me last month. They said they needed to downsize, that the market was peaking. They said they'd talk to you." I thought they had. I hung up. The betrayal was a 2-story house, and I was trapped in the basement. My parents, and my brother, who'd been given a key to the secret while I was left outside in the dark. That's when the text came in. From our family group chat, aptly named the Maple Tree. "Mom, family meeting. This Sunday at 2 p.m. at our new condo. Important news to share. Can't wait to see you all." Our new condo. The words burned on the screen. The casual cruelty of that exclamation point. I didn't reply. A cold, clarifying fury settled over me. They wanted a family meeting. To share their important news. Fine. But I wouldn't be walking in blind. I wouldn't be the stunned, hurt son receiving their generous explanation. If this was a meeting, I was going to be prepared. I was going to walk in with my own facts, my own evidence, and my own devastating news. I spent the week digging. One, found the public records of the sale. I found the listing for their new luxury condo downtown, a sleek, 2-bedroom box with a river view. Purchased outright for $650,000. I did the math. $900,000 minus $650,000 left, $250,000. Where was that going? I called a family friend who was a real estate attorney under the guise of general advice. A few careful questions revealed my parents had set up a new financial trust last month. The pieces clicked into a chilling picture. This wasn't just downsizing. This was a strategic, secretive financial move. And their eldest son, was deliberately excluded from the plan. The fury hardened into a plan. They wanted to control the narrative on Sunday. They had no idea the story was already written, and I was holding the final chapter. Sunday arrived. I put on my best suit, the armor I wore for closing big deals. In my briefcase, I had copies of the property records, the condo listing, and a spreadsheet of my own. I drove to their new building, gleaming glass tower that felt nothing like home. I took the elevator to the 14th floor. The door to 1403 was slightly ajar. I could hear their voices, light, laughing. My brother's voice, too. They were all in there, waiting to perform their little reveal. I pushed the door open. The laughter died. They were all there, Mom, Dad, Evan, and his wife. The new condo was sterile, all neutral tones and unused surfaces. A bottle of champagne sat chilling in a bucket on the counter. "Finn, you're here," my mother chirped, rushing over to hug me. Her hug felt like a lie. "We have such exciting news." I didn't hug her back. I stepped into the center of the room, placed my briefcase on their new, spotless coffee table, and looked at each of them. "I know," I said, my voice flat and loud in the quiet room. "You sold our home for $900,000 without telling me? You bought this place? And you have $250,000 left over. What's the plan for that, Dad?" "A new boat. A long vacation. While I've been paying a fortune in rent, dreaming of the day I could afford a down payment on a place with a yard. A place like the one you just sold." The shocked silence was absolute. The champagne bottles seemed to sweat in the bucket. My brother looked at the floor. My father's face turned the color of old brick. The family meeting had begun, and I had just lit the fuse on total chaos, the silence and the sterile. Condo was so complete I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. A foreign electric sound that underscored how wrong this place was. My words hung in the air, toxic and undeniable. The celebratory set up the champagne. My mother's bright dress now looked grotesque. A party for a crime scene. My mother's hand was still half outstretched from the aborted hug. It slowly fell to her side. Her smile didn't just fade. It disintegrated, replaced by a mask of wounded shock. "Finn, how could you? We were going to tell you today." "You were telling me today," I said, my voice still terrifyingly calm. 3 weeks after it was a done deal. After my key didn't work. After strangers were sleeping in my bed. I turned my gaze to my father. "You taught me that important family decisions are made together." Or was that just another line for the childhood speeches? My father, a man built on quiet authority, found his voice, but it was defensive. "Finn, watch your tone. This is our house. Our money. Our decision." The market was at a peak. We had to move fast. We didn't want to burden me. A harsh laugh escaped me. "You think finding out from a sold sign was less of a burden? You told Evan?" I shot a look at my brother, who flinched. "You gave him the courtesy of a heads up." "Why? Because he has a kid. Because he lives farther away." What was I, Dad? The unreliable one. The one who couldn't handle the news? "That's not it, Finn." Evan finally spoke, his voice pleading. "They said they'd talk to you." I assumed they had. I didn't want to step in the middle. "You're in the middle now," I said, unlocking my briefcase. The click echoed. I pulled out the folders, laying them on the glass table like evidence in a trial. "Here's the deed transfer. Date March 15th. Here's the listing for this condo. Purchase price $650,000. All cash, no mortgage." I looked up. Must be nice. My mother's eyes were filling with tears, but they sparked with a defensive anger. "We've worked hard for that house. We have a right to enjoy our retirement. We don't need a big empty house anymore." "I never said you did," I replied, my focus shifting back to my father. "It's the secrecy. It's the $250,000 in profit just sitting there." While I've been sending you articles about first-time homebuyer programs, talking about neighborhoods, dreaming out loud, you just nodded and smiled, didn't you? All while you were packing up my life and signing it away. I pulled out the last sheet, my simple spreadsheet. Here's a math problem. Dad, $900,000 minus $650,000 equals $250,000. Where is it? The Maple Ridge Trust. I used the name I'd gleaned, watching his eyes widen. What's it for? Is it for your grandchildren? I looked at Evan and his wife, Sarah. Is it for Liam's college fund? A nice, tidy trust so you don't have to worry. Sarah looked stricken, pulling her toddler closer. Finn, please. No, it's a fair question, I pressed, the dam of my controls starting to crack, letting the raw hurt through. Because if there's a trust for the future generation, that means you've written me off as part of it. I'm the childless son, the one still figuring it out. My future, my family to be, doesn't rate a seat at the table when you're divvying up the past. That is enough. My father roared, finally snapping. He stood up, his chair scraping against the new hardwood. You have no right to come in here and make these accusations. That money is ours. We earned it. We could light it on fire if we wanted to. The chaos I'd promised was here. The polished family meeting was in shards. You're right, I said, standing to meet him eye to eye. Owled. And you'd still have to look me in the eye and tell me why you didn't think I deserved to know. Why you didn't think, hey, maybe Finn would want to buy the house. Maybe he'd want to keep it in the family. Was that even a thought? Or was the check from the developer just too shiny to risk me complicating things? The word developer landed like a grenade. I hadn't been sure, but my father's flinch confirmed it. What developer? Evan asked, confused. My mother let out a small, desperate sob. It wasn't a developer. It was a lovely young couple who sold it to a developer the same day they closed. I finished my PI's late-night call confirming it. The lovely young couple were flippers. They've already filed for a demolition permit to build 2 McMansions on the lot. The oak tree's already gone. They took it out last week. That was the kill shot. The pretense collapsed. My mother crumpled into a chair, crying in earnest now. My father's bluster vanished, replaced by a gray, shamed pallor. They hadn't just sold the house. They'd sold it to a chain that would erase it from the earth. And they'd known. Evan stood up, his face a storm of betrayal. You said it was a family. You said they'd love it like we did. You lied to me too. The room erupted into overlapping accusations and tears. Sarah tried to soothe a now crying Liam. My father was trying to justify the higher offer, the security it provided. My mother was wailing about property taxes and empty nests. I didn't say another word. I just watched the chaos, the perfect, painful chaos I'd unleashed. This was the consequence of their silence. Made flesh and noise in their pristine new living room. I gathered my papers, slid them back into my briefcase. The click of the locks was the only decisive sound in the room. They all stopped and looked at me. I came here today to tell you I'm engaged. I said, my voice quiet but cutting through the noise. I pulled a small ring box from my pocket, opening it to show my grandmother's diamond. I was going to ask if we could take the photos in the backyard, under what's left of the oak. I guess we'll have to find a new spot. I turned and walked to the door. I paused with my hand on the knob, not looking back. Enjoy the champagne, I said, and left, closing the door softly on the wreckage of my family. The meeting was over. The chaos was just beginning. And as I rode the elevator down, the calm was gone, replaced by a trembling, vast emptiness. I had exposed the truth, shattered the illusion, and in doing so, I had maybe just sold something of my own that I could never get back. The elevator's descent was a silent, smooth plunge that felt like falling forever. The ring box was a dead weight in my pocket. In the polished brass doors, my reflection was a stranger pale, eyes dark with a fury that had burned down to cold ash. The echo of the chaos I'd left upstairs, my mother's sobs. My father's shattered bluster. Evan's confused betrayal was louder in my head than any sound. I got into my car, but didn't start it. I just sat in the sterile underground garage, the air smelling of concrete and exhaust. A universe away from the scent of grass and old wood that used to mean home. I looked at my phone. A barrage of notifications from the family group chat, which I'd muted. Missed calls from Evan, a single text from my mother. Finn, please come back. Let's talk. I didn't reply. The talk was over. They'd had their chance to talk for months and chose secrecy. Now they just wanted to manage the fallout. I drove aimlessly at first, then with a grim purpose. I wasn't going back to my apartment. I drove to Maple Ridge. I needed to see it one last time with my new, cursed knowledge. The sold sign was now joined by a smaller, more ominous placard. Pending demolition, lot redevelopment. The new owners, the Flippers, had already erected a temporary chain-link fence around the property. The old blue flower pot was gone. Through the fence, I could see the house. It looked smaller already, like a prisoner awaiting execution. The curtains were gone from the windows, leaving dark, hollow eyes. In the backyard, the stump of the oak tree was a raw, brown scar in the earth. They'd already started. A man in a hard hat and a reflective vest was unspooling measuring tape near the front porch. I got out and walked to the fence. "You with the city," he called out, not unkindly. "No, I grew up here." His expression shifted to one of professional sympathy. "Ah, sorry, man. She's a nice old place. But the foundation's shot and the layout. Not workable for today. 2 nice big units'll go up here. More families, you know. More families." The words were a twist of the knife. He saw a dilapidated structure. I saw the ghost of every birthday, every Christmas morning, every whispered secret in the stairwell. They weren't just tearing down a house. They were paving over a universe. I just nodded, unable to speak, and walked back to my car. The finality of it was a physical blow. My trap, my exposure, my dramatic exit, none of it changed this. The house was still gone. The truth had not set me free. It had just shown me the dimensions of my cage. I spent the next week in a numb, functional haze. I went to work, closed deals, said yes to my fiancée Kara when she asked gently if I was okay. I showed her the ring. Her joy was bright, beautiful, and it felt like it was happening to someone else, behind a thick pane of glass. "We should tell your parents," she said, her face glowing. "They know," I said flatly, and told her everything. The sold sign, the condo, the meeting, the demolition. Her joy melted into heartbreak, then into a fierce, protective anger on my behalf. How could they? "Finn, that's monstrous." Having her on my side was a lifeline, but it also made the loss feel more real. This wasn't just my past they'd sold. It was the future memories I'd wanted to make there with her. The messages from my family evolved. The pleas turned into justifications, then into accusations. "Dad, your theatrics were uncalled for. You humiliated your mother. We made a sound financial decision. You'll understand when you're older. Mom, we saved for that money our whole lives. It's for our care, so we won't be a burden on you boys. You should be grateful we're responsible." Evan. They set up a trust for Liam's education. And one for future grandchildren. It's not personal, Finn. They were trying to be fair. Future grandchildren. Not your children, future grandchildren. The message was clear. Evan's son was real. My hypothetical children were a line in a trust document. An afterthought. Kara saw the texts. "They're trying to rewrite history," she said, her voice cold. "They're painting you as the ungrateful villain so they can sleep at night." She was right. And the worst part was, a sliver of me, the little boy who loved them, wanted to let them. The chaos of the meeting was exhausting. The silence that followed was worse. Then the letter arrived. Formal, from my parents' attorney. I almost didn't open it, expecting some kind of cease and desist for my theatrics. It was worse. It was a copy of the Maple Ridge Trust. The terms were laid out in cold legalese. The $250,000 was indeed placed in a trust. $150,000 was earmarked for educational and medical expenses for grandchildren. specified that distributions were at the sole discretion of the trustees, my parents. The remaining $100,000 was for end-of-life care and final expenses for the grantors. And there, in a single brutal subclause, was the answer to my unasked question. The grantors expressly confirm that no beneficiary of this trust shall have any present or future interest in the former real property located at 214 Maple Ridge, nor any claim against the proceeds of its sale. It was a legal preemptive strike. They'd had their lawyer draw up a document to explicitly disinherit me from the home, to legally sever my claim before I could even think of making one. This wasn't an oversight. This was a calculated legal erasure. The cover note from the lawyer was polite. Sterile. Your parents ask that you be made aware of the trust's provisions to avoid any future misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That's what they were calling it. The cold fury returned, cleaner and sharper than before. They wanted to make this legal. Financial. Fine. Two could play that game. I went to my own attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Rachel who had handled my business contracts. I laid out the entire story and showed her the trust. She read it, her lips pressed into a thin line. Morally, they're gargoyles, she said finally. Legally, they're on very solid ground. It was their property. They can dispose of the proceeds as they see fit. The trust is airtight. I felt the fight drain out of me, replaced by a profound weariness. However, she continued, tapping the clause about the trustee's discretion. This is interesting. They've retained complete control, which means the trust isn't a gift. It's a tool of control. They've not only taken the house, they've dangled the money as a carrot for future good behavior from your brother and from you. If you ever have kids, so there's nothing I can do. Not about the money or the house, she said. But you can control your own narrative. And you can control your future. She leaned forward. Finn, they've shown you who they are. They've placed a financial instrument above a family relationship. You need to decide what your relationship is with people who do that. And you need to protect your new family, Kara, your future, from that toxicity. Her words were a roadmap out of the emotional labyrinth. I couldn't fight them in court, but I could build a fortress they couldn't breach. I went home and drafted an email. Not a emotional screed. A cold, clear, professional communication. Subject, formal acknowledgement of trust and family boundaries. To Mom, Dad, Evan Cece, Parents Attorney, I have received and reviewed the documentation for the Maple Ridge Trust from your attorney. I acknowledge its terms. Please be advised that I hereby renounce any and all future beneficial interest, whether actual or contingent, in said trust. I will not be a party to an instrument designed to administer conditional affection. Furthermore, given the profound breach of trust and the deliberate exclusion from a major family decision, I am establishing a boundary. Until such time as a full, unqualified apology is issued not for the sale, but for the secrecy and the calculated exclusion, I will be taking a step back from our relationship. Kara and I are engaged. We will be planning our wedding and our future without reference to the history or resources you have chosen to sequester. We wish you well in your new home. Finai read it over once, my hand hovering. This was the real point of no return. This was the legal adult equivalent of slamming a door. I thought of the little boy in the home video blowing out candles. I hit send. The chaos of the meeting had been loud and hot. This was silent and cold. It was the sound of a bridge, not burning, but being dismantled, brick by brick, with surgical precision. And as the notification said sent, I felt the first faint, terrifying tremor of something that wasn't pain or anger. It was freedom.